Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Sunday evening Meet the Atheists panel. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you one of our atheist friends from the United States, Lissette. How are you doing?
I'm great. It's not evening over here, but and I'm in Canada, but that's okay. It's the same, basically.
Okay, for us, it's the same. It's the same thing.
Yeah, all of my Canadian friends just cringe. They're like, ugh.
Amazing. Yeah, I ran into you, like I said, on the Belief Battles YouTube channel, and I said to myself, damn, we have to speak to this lady. I really love you were very concise, like surgical in your logic, And I said, like, yeah, no, we need more of that. So, let's dive straight into it. Would you, mind telling us a little bit about your background so that we can get to know you? Like, who is Lissette? What is your background? Did you grow up in a religion? And just paint a picture for us.
Yeah, for sure. So I was born in Chile, South America, to very Christian parents. My father was very Catholic, Roman Catholic, and my mother very all over the place Christian. She went from Mormonism to Pentecostal to Anglican to Lutheran to like just everything, right? Dabbed in a little bit of everything, but always under the Christian umbrella. And we moved to Canada when I was 6 years old. So I was, young enough to be able to adopt the Canadian culture very easily, but also old enough to maintain a very, very South American Spanish home. And as my mom used to always say, she would say, from the front door in, it's Chile, and from the front door out, it's Canada. So in here, Chilean rules apply, miss. So it was an interesting childhood, that's for sure. But the main theme through everything was Christianity. We were very, very, very religious. I went to a Catholic school from kindergarten to grade 12, which was incredibly, hindsight's 2020, but I thought everything was how everybody lived, and I wasn't really exposed to different religions or cultures. So that was really interesting going to college afterwards, that's for sure. And then, at home, my father went to Catholic church every single Sunday. And my mom would sometimes take him to her church, which was Pentecostal. And then they separated when I was about 19. So then I had that weird crossroad of, oh, I have to pick a religion? Like, who do I go with, right? And so mommy's girl, I went with my mom to Pentecostal church, and I really started to adopt that indoctrination and that faith. And then, that's basically in a nutshell, just everything.
The funny thing about Pentecostalism is, I also, I went through this period where I was just tap dancing around all the different flavors of Christianity, because they all tasted bland to me at the end of the day, but
not the Pentecostals.
No. You feel the spirit when you walk into those doors, my friend.
It is amazing. There's something about I still have my tambourines from literally being in one of the church pews and just
get down,
rocking out with my tambourine. Oh yeah, speaking in tongues and just the music and the worship praise, and oh my gosh,
that's something else. So your personal journey of deconversion from that upbringing, what were some of the key factors and experiences that stand as milestones for you along the road that led you to question and ultimately let go of your religion?
For sure. So I'll try to not make this a 3-hour answer here. I'll give you the Reader's Digest version.
We love to hear this stuff. Because we relate to it, we relate to it. That's why we find it so interesting.
I probably will do some oversharing. I'm known for that, so bear with me.
You're good.
So for myself, I, really, truly, truly believed, and I wanted to be a good person and a good human, and I wanted to help other people, and I believed in, I believed in God and Jesus and all of these things, and that was my priority. I know, right? Like it was real to me, Dean. It was real. So, and I start off with that because so many times I hear, well, you must have not really been a Christian then, or you must have, right? And so I just want to start off with saying I 100% wanted to be the best Christian that I could possibly be. And I wanted to make, a really Christian home for my son. But long story short, I met a gentleman in the church and fell madly in love. And my mother was, again, very strict Christian, and there is no, sex before marriage. There's no living with a man before marriage. That would be completely unheard of. I mean, it wasn't even an option. It wasn't even something that I would have even thought about. So 3 months after I met him, we got married in the church. Shocking. So I won't go into that detail, but I'm sure everybody can, kind of put the pieces together as to why that was so quick.
We get it. You were married quickly.
And it was kind of like that picture perfect dream that I wanted and that I imagined would happen. Like there wasn't really another option growing up.
Right.
That's just how life was, right? You get married and you have children, and it is what it is. So after about 3 years, my son, who was about 6 months old, this gentleman left with someone else, and I was completely ashamed and embarrassed and just shocked, right? And I remember just really relying on prayer and trying to figure out, how I'm going to move forward with this, and is he going to come back, and is this what God wants for me? Like just always kind of doubling back on there must be a reason for this, right? And one of the saddest things about those years, I think, looking back, I can't even recognize myself. That anything that this person did was tolerated and acceptable, and it didn't matter if there was any sort of element of control or abuse or anything like that. It was, that is the person that I have married, and this is the person that God chose for me. And even in the process of those 3 months, I mean, it's a short time, but I remember distinctly praying so hard and just saying, if this is the person for me, it'll happen. And if this is the person that I'm supposed to be married for the rest of my life, it'll happen. And things just worked out really smoothly in those 3 months, like stupid little things. Like I would go into a craft store and the thing that I was looking for would be on sale. And I'm like, oh, that's a sign from God. God wants me to get married because the silver foil paper that I wanted to decorate my cards with is on sale. Like that's right. So
just making those connections,
looking back, it's I have nothing but compassion and empathy for myself, because it's there was a lot of pain, I think, in the deconstruction process, and but looking back, I don't want to be condescending or patronizing to myself and say, it was cute, but at the same time, it was very naive and very innocent, and it really truly came from a good place, made the connections. So everything worked out, like the day that I wanted had just been available at the hotel and just all of that stuff. So when, he had left, this is 3 years of an individual who was consistently being unfaithful, right? The first time that I found out that this had happened was 6 weeks after our wedding. So, there's a lot of shame in that still to this day. But more importantly, I think that tolerated factor for me was just hearing from everybody in the church that, well, he's your husband and you basically just have to get over it, and you have to wait and just pray to God, and he'll, leave it in God's hands, and God will fix it, and etc. So I think, that devaluing of a human and of a woman that I went through was solely because of the church and the faith. And so for me, I think, looking now back on that, the one thing that I wish I could just communicate to all women is your worth is not your religion. You know, you're so much more than that. But so, you know, it was a common thing.
But wait a minute, you know, like a religion is not really a friend of women, you know, like you.
No,
you're
no, we're not friends at all.
That's like half of the human population right there.
Right? Oh my God. I remember calling this man, my mother-in-law at the time. I remember calling her or speaking to her, and she went over a biblical story, and ever since then I haven't bothered actually looking into it and to say what that story was, but she was talking about how there was a woman in the Bible who really suffered in her marriage, but she stuck through, and 7 years after, you know, this pain and torture and getting cheated on and all this stuff, her husband one day basically just woke up and was like, oh, this woman is my wife, and she has stuck through me through all my crap, so I'm going to love her now. And so I remember sitting on the phone and being like, I don't want to wait 7 years. Like, what? And the number 7 is so repeated, right? So like 7 is just such a huge, important number. So the moment that somebody says 7, it's like, can we make it 7 days? Like, maybe 7 hours? Like, I don't know. So it was really, really, like, there wasn't another option. And the thought of leaving or walking away just wasn't even there. And so if anything, I am so grateful to this day that he left, because I would have never left, and I would be to this day in a very unhappy, very self-sabotaging state. So it's wonderful that happened, and I'm very grateful for that, for sure. Now, one of the things too that really truly impacted my deconversion was, at this time when he did leave, I had a 6-month-old baby, and I was in nursing school, not having an income, terrified, not knowing what to do, ashamed, embarrassed, just completely. I didn't feel like I could go to that church that I had met him at, because a lot of his family was in that church. So his uncle's one of the pastors at the church, you know, like, just, it was so heavily influenced by the people that I had known for so long that I felt like if I went, it wasn't an option anymore. Like, I felt so unwelcome and so embarrassed and so ashamed, and I didn't want that pity, I guess, right? I had some dignity. I wasn't all, you know, anyways. Compassion.
You know, but religion teaches us shame. You know, it teaches us shame
100%,
for who we are, for our behaviors and everything. It's all learned behavior.
It is.
We're basically the only animal that exhibits shame.
Right? I know. Like, you should see the things my dogs do. Like, they're living their best life. They're happy. So one of the things that I started to do was, I knew for sure that I wanted my son to be raised in the church, and I wanted him to have good Christian values and that support from the church.
That's what people do, yeah.
Right? Which is weird, because I never had any support from the church. So the fact that in my head I'm like, oh, the church will support us, like, no, they never did, but whatever. That's another topic. Hypocrisy at its finest. So I started kind of church hopping, looking for our new church, right? And I was looking for somewhere that would take, you know, my son would be able to grow up and have friends and learn and grow just the way that I did. And I had a lovely childhood. I really did. And so for me, I think that I associated my happy childhood and the happy parts of my childhood with the church, because a lot of the memories that were made, a lot of those core memories somehow were associated with the church. And so I think that's a really huge part of how the church kind of holds on and grasps those, people and children. We have these memories from being happy, and they just happen to be at Sunday school because you went to Sunday school every Sunday, or they happen to be, because at summer camp was Christian. It has nothing to do with, the fact that we're humans and we're going to have good experiences, right? So the church takes full credit for that. Good on them, I guess. Shame on them, I should say. Yeah. So one of the things that I started doing was, go going from church to church, and every single church that I went to had some sort of problem. Like they weren't good enough, right? Like there was either, you know, the one lady that I could see like while everybody was praying with her eyes closed, and she would like be staring around. I'm like, oh, she looks scary. Like that's no. Like I need to like hex her away from me. Or, you know, the pastor just said something that was a little off, or things like that. So, and me and my mom have very different values. She's very traditional. She's, you know, she'll be 71 years old this year, and she's Latina. She came to Canada when she was 44. So her culture is in her, and that's not going away. So a lot of the things that, you know, we believe in are very different. And we couldn't pick a church. There wasn't anyone that we really felt. And I just started, you know, thinking the Bible says that where 2 or 3 or more unite, that the presence of the Holy Spirit will be there. So I thought, okay, well, me, my mom, and my son, that's 3. We're good. If we unite every Sunday and pray, the Holy Spirit will come, right? Like, how sad is it that if I would have been completely alone, I wouldn't have been able to pray to this God? Like he wouldn't come because I'm by myself and I don't have one other person. Yeah. Like the logic, right, was just not there at all. Like I'm good. I have 2 other people. Yay. Now I'm worthy of having the Holy Spirit. Jeez. So we, this is, I love going through this story because it brings out so much, love and care for that process, you know, and just, I wish I could go back in time and just kind of hug myself, because even though it was super painful, it was just, now I look back on it, it was such a good, slow process where it really kind of, I enjoy it. Anyways. So I started going on YouTube. Oops.
It's the atheist making machine that side.
Right? Oh my God. Education, so scary. This is why the pastors and priests tell you to not talk to heathens, right? Or not go on the devil's website, YouTube. And I started looking specifically for Sunday masses or Sunday pastors preaching and things like that, so that I would start essentially making like a notebook where I would say, okay, this Sunday we're going to watch this video and I'm going to have these songs. Like I was literally creating an agenda of church for every Sunday. And so when I started going down the rabbit hole, right, of YouTube, I found channels like the ACA, the Atheist Community of Austin. I found, Christopher Hitchens and the Four Horsemen and all these ideas that were really interesting to me, but at the same time were, I need to learn this because I need to know the answer to these questions so that I can be the best Christian. So I really went into it just with the best intentions of fortifying my faith and getting really good sound logic. I came out with really good sound logic, just not with the faith part, right? So, it was over, I would say, at least 2 years where, I still remember being in the shower one day and thinking, oh my God, I don't believe in God. And just being like, that sentence doesn't even make sense. Like I just said, oh my God, I don't believe in God. So, I was so confused and so torn that it was an interesting battle for sure. But
it's strange that you mentioned, the turmoil, because people, generally, when they are believers, they have this vision in their heads of, atheists being wrapped up in sinful behavior. And then, like we don't believe in God because we just want to sin and have orgies and roast babies on Sundays and have naked dancing in the forest and, all the sinful stuff. And
that sounds so much fun.
We sit there on weekends plotting about overthrowing the churches and burning Bibles. But it's a traumatic process, it's part of your identity that you have to actually, it's almost like losing a family member. You have to come to
Yeah,
terms with the
100%.
loss of that part of your identity. And through, like you say, doing a lot of inside work, like come to terms with it and realize, okay, this is who I am now. This is just one part of me that's gone. I'm still the same person. I just have a different outlook on things. And you'll be fine. Like that's the one thing that people need to realize is, even if you change the core belief, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
You're not going
Right.
to shrivel up and die because you
No,
change your
it's true.
beliefs.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean,
But it
it's really hard
resonates
to
with me
see.
so much.
Yeah. It's I think it's hard to see during the moment when, you're losing everybody that you know. And there were people in my life that even after I would comfortably call myself an atheist, I would not comfortably tell them that I was an atheist. I was, doing YouTube shows and having my name on there and, having that confidence that, yes, I am an atheist. But the moment that somebody that I knew and was close to me and didn't know about the shows would say something about God, I would just, okay. That fear of, am I going to be judged? Are they going to think that I'm a horrible person? Am I going to lose these friendships? I remember even one of my coworkers, when I was first, deconverting, we were talking about a mutual coworker who was lovely and she was moving away. And so we were saying how we were going to miss her. And she goes, yeah, I would maintain a friendship with her, but she's an atheist. And I was like, oh, right. So looking back on that, like all those little messages.
Kind of stigma, though. It's such a strange stigma that we attach to it. Because at the end of the day, we have got social capital invested in relationships.
Yes.
We have got there's a value to certain relationships, and as soon as those relationships come into a position of compromise, we automatically try to protect them. And you do anything not to compromise a relationship and lose that capital that you have invested in it. Makes perfect sense.
That's such a good way of putting it. Very good way of putting it. I went on mute because I heard my dogs barking. I have 2 little chihuahuas, like typical Latina.
Fine. That's fine. Dogs are atheists too. They don't.
Amen, Dean. Amen.
They are very welcome. Yeah. And it's surprising how many people cite shows like the Atheist Experience. Some of the big YouTubers. It's such important work that every person does who speaks out about it. And you don't need to be the 10,000 views per live type of atheist to make a difference. It's like we said earlier, if one person hears me and feels comfortable and says, damn, I can relate, it's all worth it in the end. So let's talk a little bit about something, what are you passionate about in your life? Like what fuels you in the morning to get up? Because, now that you're not religious, you've got there's no purpose to your life. You just like you're living to be worm food, It's like.
Right. Oh, why am I here? Deep conversations with Dean. So I love talking about this because I think it's one of the number one things that I hear as well. It's what's your purpose and how do you have a purpose if you don't have a God? And I think I gained a purpose when I left religion. I gained myself when I left God. My purpose is living in the moment. And I think I used to say that as a Christian, carpe diem. And me and my brother used to always say that to each other, seize the day. But the difference that, right? Hashtag carpe diem. He would be proud. He would be proud I just said that. But I have really, truly seized the day now, like I look at my son and he is sassy and oh my God, so talkative. Like he doesn't stop talking, but just the fact that he exists and is here with me it's just so cool. I don't need to think of a creator. Like, I'll take credit. I had him in my belly for, 8 months. Like, I had him. And so just the power of our existence and how everything is, it means so much more to me now that I don't have, this entity to kind of just give credit to, everything that I do and everything that I have gained and lost and all my successes and all my failures, or I should say learning opportunities. I'm trying to start calling them learning opportunities. All of those things are because of me, and I can give myself credit for it. And that is what drives me. That's what gives me the motivation. I don't, if I have to do a test, I don't say, oh God, please help me pass this test. No, I'm going to work my butt off and I'm going to read and study and practice, like I gained control of my life, and I gained that respect of myself and that self-worth and that value. It's so powerful as a woman, as a human being, to be able to say, I built a home 2 years ago, and that was me. That wasn't God, making everything fit together and, him giving me a mortgage, or no, I worked my butt off for years and saved money and, did research and tried to learn about economics, and that's on me. So if I have a house today, it's not because of some God who just decided to give me a house while millions of children are homeless and starving. Like, what makes me so special? I have a house because I worked for it. And so that purpose really was regained and refound. And actually, let me correct that. It wasn't regained. It was actually just gained, because I never had it, sadly, right? I was never given the opportunity growing up to have that self-worth and that self-value and that self-pride to say, this is who I am, and everything that I have achieved is because I'm pretty awesome, I've never had a better self-esteem, to be honest with you, and a better self-confidence and worth than when I started relaying all of my life to myself.
That's one thing that's such a common thread amongst atheists who've deconverted, is just that sense of self-discovery and the ability to own and take responsibility of your person, because we realize, look, there's no, we're only here for this lifetime. It's not like we just, this life is some doormat that you can wipe your feet on as you exit the door going to heaven. It's like, so people are inherently more present in their lives, and they take responsibility for what they do. They are generally more compassionate, towards their neighbors, because they know that God's not going to provide, and God's not going to take care of the sick and the needy and the homeless. That's why you'll find so many atheists are involved in, philanthropy, charity projects, community projects.
So true.
But it resonates with me 100%. What you said. So. We always like to talk smack about religion, but in that process, we sometimes make light of it, and we overlook the serious harm that religion does in societies, and especially where I live in a third world country. They have absolutely no scruples, no shame. The people who lead the religions here really prey on the poor, and they exploit them, only in it for the money. And they do these ridiculous shows like raise people from the dead, and and it's all done for show. So but that's just some of the obvious ways that religion harms people. Like, it has a very subtle effect where, like we've been discussing earlier, it teaches you that you are worthless, that you have no value, that you are only as good as, the man that you belong to, or the group of people that you are a part of, So is there anything that, that stands out for you as, something that was very harmful in the religion that you were taught?
Yeah, all of it. No. It all sucks.
check.
Right? Nothing of it was good. None of it. I think religion is extremely harmful, and that's why I am very proud to be a part of, the atheist community and just have a small little part in being able to join my Latin community with the Spanish videos and talking about atheism because of all the harms. I think, to be really serious with you, I think that every single aspect of a human being is negatively impacted by religion. I don't think that it really brings anything positive. I think that the positives that could potentially be outlined are masking a massive negative that really overpowers any type of good that could come out of it. The sense of community, that's a really great thing to have, and the sense of belonging, but at what cost? At losing yourself, right? So religion is extremely harmful. North America, I should say the States, we see examples on a daily where their laws and their societies are entirely being influenced by religion and by, these thoughts and interpretations of what is right and wrong. And it's just absolutely terrifying and disgusting and scary. I genuinely don't have anything positive to say about religion. So not to be negative, but when asked the harms of it, all of it.
Exactly.
It's all of it.
No, I mean, I share your sentiment there, because in addition to being an atheist, I'm also an anti-theist, because I think that the world would be much better off with a different system, that focuses more on humanism and human value, instead of, Bronze Age, Middle Eastern sets of morals that we have long since outgrown as a species. So name me something good that religion can do, and I can name you 20 things that very same religion does, the exact opposite, in harming people and being of a disadvantage. So it's a cost-benefit analysis. I'm just saying, what's the benefit and what's the cost? Costs too much. Bye.
Absolutely.
We don't need it. We don't need it. It's no good. So let's talk a little bit about, I like to take my guests on a journey of just self-reflection, and if you look back and you look at young
I'm gonna cry.
Cast your mind back into the past and reach out to young Lissette and touch her on the shoulder. What kind of advice would you give a younger, a youngest version of yourself, with the knowledge that you have today, knowing yourself, that that would just benefit you tremendously in this journey of being critical and rational and skeptical?
It's funny because I just saw myself on the camera and I just tensed up like this. Did you notice that? I've been la 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 talking with my hands, and then you're like, let's go back and talk to yourself when you were a kid. And I'm like, okay. I think a lot of the healing that I've had and that growth that I've had from the anger and the shame and self-pity and all of that really came from having that compassion and empathy to myself, and kind of going back in time and thinking of who I was and why I was doing the things that I was doing. So I think a lot of the reasons that I was able to essentially forgive myself or have compassion for myself is because I looked back and I said to myself, I was genuinely doing what I thought was best, given the skills that were taught to me and given the information that was provided to me. So I don't want to take away from my childhood. I really did have a happy childhood. But the one thing that I could go back and say to somebody is, keep your mind to learning other things and to learning everything that could be around you, because what you're given and what you're provided with isn't all of it. Even going from high school, being in Catholic school my whole life, and then going into college, I experienced, different cultures and different religions. I had never even known about Sikhism. And we have an extremely high population of Sikhs.
I was probably like in my 20s before, like I left my mother's house before I even knew that there were other religions.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Bubble. It's insane.
Yeah. And I remember actually taking world religion in religion class in school, right? And I remember they would talk about Buddhism and Islam and Christianity. But the way that it was communicated, and I would have to take a look at a curriculum. Actually, this would be a really interesting little project to do on my own time. But the way that I left that class was the exact same way that I went into it. So, the teaching skills or what they actually taught was masked with Catholicism and Christianity. It wasn't an actual, true, independent, unbiased resource of information. And so going back in time, I would tell myself, the information that you have is the information that was given to you. Just look for information, be open. If you are so just to digress a little bit, my 7-year-old is, how do I say this? Very interesting. So he's very curious and he likes to question things, and he knows that I'm an atheist, and he has a very Christian grandmother, right? And so if I take him anywhere, like we were going to a choir one day and he was presenting in a church, and we walked in, and straight away he looks at one of the choir organizers and he says, "My mom doesn't believe in God, but I do, so it's okay that I'm here." Okay. Thanks for outing me. Appreciate it. Where's your loyalty?
Little snitch.
Right? God. So that was super interesting to me, because I thought to myself, I haven't actually really taken the time to tell him God doesn't exist, but I don't want to. I really don't want to. I think I'm not afraid of the information, of real information and of education. And I think that so long as I provide him with the lessons of how to look for information, I'm completely happy with him just searching, right? And reading books and educating himself. I think the moment that books start getting taken away and information starts getting taken away, that's when we're in huge danger. And so, just read. We have phones in our pockets that can literally pull up anything you want at any point in time. And here we are playing Candy Crush, right?
What was this saying I heard someone said, in this age of information where, the entire world's information is literally available at your fingertips, ignorance is a choice. It really is a choice.
Oh, yes. That's so true.
If you choose not to know something, it's by choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's insane. So, you alluded to this a little bit earlier, where you talked about the shift in perspective, and but did you notice a significant shift in your worldview? Did anything specifically change? Like pre-atheism, you had X kind of worldview, and post-atheism, you were that kind of worldview. Some people go from being completely conservative to completely liberal, and is there anything like that you noticed in your life?
I love this question, because I think I'm going to have a really hard time explaining this. I have the exact same worldviews on so many things. I'm definitely more socialist than capitalist, right? I'm definitely more, I believe in, I would be considered, I guess, more liberal than Republican, or, things like that. And I've always been like that. I've always thought that, basic human needs are basic human rights. And I'm a strong advocate for equality and just providing everybody with opportunities, right? And I heard someone say this once, and I think I'll give the credit to Matt Dillahunty, who said, if you are going to be born in a society and you are afraid of what family you're going to be born into, then that society is essentially has problems and it needs to be fixed, right? He said it way more eloquently than I just did, but you get the gist. I'm able to communicate. And so for me, like, losing the religious and the God aspect only made me realize that all that goodness that I believe in, and the compassion and the empathy and everything it stands for, is of credit to my humanity, and not because there's a God that is going to reward me if I'm a good person, right? And so my worldview is the same, but the outlook on my worldview has absolutely changed. And if anything, has probably made me more arrogant, because I'm way more of a moral, decent being than any God that is explained in the Bible.
No, exactly. Who was it? Somebody said, that the exact saying is going to elude me, but it's something along the lines of good people will always do good, bad people will always do bad, but for good people to do bad, you have to add some, you have to sprinkle some religion.
Yes.
On top,
So true.
It's very seldom that people have this massive radical outlook, like, when I was a Christian, I was like part of the gay bashing group, and now that, now that I'm an atheist, I'm hang out at the gay clubs. It's very seldom that somebody gets that radical shift. But people generally report things like they become a little bit more compassionate, they become more sensitive to other people, because they're not necessarily part of that in and out group anymore, because religion is very insular. It tries to keep the flock together, because if one of the flock strays, then the shepherd has to go and fetch them and bring them back to the fray.
Yeah. If anything, I've honestly probably just become harder then, because I'm meaner. I'm not as forgiving and nice. I'm scarier. No.
No, that's good. Because there's so many different stages that people go through during this journey. Let me speak for myself now. Like, when I just became an atheist, I was fucking furious. I was so mad. Like, I was so angry that I was conned and lied to and fooled by so many people that I trusted very, very deeply. And I was enraged. It made me so demurin, because
and you have every right to be too. Like, you were conned. You were like,
exactly. People violated it's the violation of a trust relationship, and then only after some time that settled, and it became, I realized, okay, these people aren't inherently evil. They're not inherently doing this to me out of malicious intent. This is something that they deeply believed, and they were only trying, and as soon as I started adding some compassion into the mix, then it all settled down and bubbled down, but it's a good emotion to feel, anger, because it burns away nonsense. It's just very good.
True.
It's a very good emotion to just clear up all the nonsense, even like after a couple of broken plates.
Right. I'm still in the angry stage. I don't know when I'm going to get out of that. I might not ever.
It's good. It's good. But it's essential. Like, you have to experience that. You have to experience that.
Sure.
And it's a good cleanses out everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the level of anger too that I have is healthier now. I think more towards in the beginning, a lot of my anger was rooted in what could have been of my life had I not been indoctrinated as a child, right?
Exactly.
Would I have gone to be an astronaut, or like actually believed in myself, and not been told, as a woman, why are you going to college if you're just get married and have babies, right? Like, why would you do that? It's silly. It's so stupid. But I think, on the other side too, I think that anger is very much balanced with that pride of, in spite of religion, I am where I am today. And in spite of those experiences and those teachings, I've been able to be stronger than that and think for myself. And a lot of that, ironically, I credit to my mom, who is extremely Christian, but she is a very honest person. And so whenever, you know, I would say, I want to read into this, or I want to research this, my mother would say, you know, good, education's good. Go learn. She just didn't know the education. And so she's still within that world of religion. And that's okay. She's an incredible human, and I will always love and respect her. And we've learned to coexist. More than that. No, we love each other. I do like her.
That's amazing. Are you cool with taking an audience question?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. That's cool. I'm wondering, after discovering there is no magical gods, if this made you feel a lot better. I am former Christian, and after faith, my mind has been so much more clear. What's your experience? Oh my gosh, Brooklyn. I love this question, and I think that it is the reason that I've, you know, gained my self-worth. I think not having to credit an imaginary God for all of the good in my life, and not having, you know, someone else to lay responsibility of my life really gave me peace, because I'm not sitting here in a situation of helplessness. I was able to regain that power. And so, you know, even right now, if there's a stressful situation, I'm not at the mercy of a God who may or may not decide to help me through it, depending on how hard I pray or humiliate myself or sing in church. Right now, if I have a problem that I have to face, I can take a look at my options and work towards fixing it. And if I can't fix it, I'm not at the mercy and helplessness of a sadistic, capricious, disgusting, cruel God, right? And so that piece of not having that is huge and massive, and it's been life-changing for me too. I'm glad to see that, you know, they as well have that experience, and that they have a clearer mind and more peace, because I think it's crucial to have for quality of life, right?
And it's empowering, you know, it really is empowering when you come to this realization, because that's one of the things that religion does. It seeks to disempower you, you know, make you feel less than, weak, in need of something outside of yourself to be fulfilled, you know. And as soon as you let go of that, you realize that the power was within you all along. You were just, you know, giving it away instead of holding on to it. And that's a very empowering experience to have as human beings.
Absolutely.
You know, we realize that we need to be responsible and, you know, and look out for your own shit.
Yeah, exactly. Study for those tests, kids. Don't just pray.
This is an interesting question from Fadi. You know, there's the we also had the same thing in South Africa. You know, we're also a country that was colonized. The Europeans came in and they simply whitewashed, you know, every single bit of traditional culture that was here was whitewashed with, you know, Jesus from the south and Mo from the north. And you know, he's asking if you had any you know, experience like that, the indigenous struggles in Canada and Chile, and especially the church part.
That's a really powerful question. Thank you, Fadi. That's huge. The indigenous people have suffered for so long, and the intergenerational trauma that has been passed on has effects that you can see nowadays that is so heartbreaking. You know, and I think I went to Catholic school my whole life, and I didn't know anything about residential schools until more recently, where it's been on the news, where, you know, in BC, they just found a couple of years ago, they found the remains of 215 children at that residential school. And then through searching other residential schools amongst in North America, they were finding thousands. And these are children that were removed from their homes and brought to these residential schools so that they could lose their culture and their identity and be indoctrinated into this, Christian white man's world. And I think there's so much to talk about when it comes to this topic, and I don't want to not do it justice. That all I can say is that it is a really, really horrible part of our current modern day history. It's still very present. I think in Canada, the last residential school closed in the late 80s, early 90s, which is, in my lifetime, horrible.
No, it's like just a couple of decades ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's very recent. And so I'm really glad to see that it's not just somebody here in Canada that knows about it and that, thought to even talk about it, because it means that the word is getting out and that people are starting to realize the harms and dangers of the church. But it's really heartbreaking. And I think that the damage that has been caused is going to remain lingering in future generations to come for a very, very, very long time. That loss of identity, that things that are lost that we don't even know about, that our Indigenous people won't even know because they were just completely removed. And having days like Red Dress Day, where, for example, we remember and we think of all of our Indigenous women who go missing and who are murdered on a daily basis in Canada. That is a daily struggle that our Indigenous people have to go through. And that's not reported on the news. That's not even taken seriously by police. That's not anything that's even remotely respected as a problem, but it happens on the daily. If, a white girl was to go missing at 14, we would have mass media. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Like it would be news, but that doesn't happen with our Indigenous people. And why is that? Is that a result of racism? Is that a result of so many different factors? So I think it's a great,
it's very systemic in its in the way that it affects everything. Like you said, it's such a deep topic.
It is. There's
so many different facets and aspects to it, and we here in South Africa can also relate to that. We also come from that history, and I mean, people call it history. It's 30 years ago. It's still happening today. It's like It's like you said, that shit still, it just goes on. It just goes underground. It doesn't. It never goes away. It just hides. It hides in the shadows.
Yes,
where people
absolutely.
aren't shining the light. Yeah.
We have, reservations that still don't have access to clean water. And so the fact that we still have people who will turn on their tap water and have black water coming out in what is supposedly a first world country, and nothing is done about that. I mean, that's a direct result of all of this. And I completely blame religion and all its harm for that, for sure.
I have so many more questions to go through, but I really want to be mindful of your time and our viewers' time as well. So in the last 5 minutes that we have for our show here, just to I want to make sure that we in closing cover where people can find you on social media. But before you we touched briefly on this, but how do you engage nowadays with religious individuals or communities around you now that you identify as an atheist? Are you one of those firebrand atheists, or there's a lot of different styles that people, some people couldn't give a ass about it. They're like, you believe in God, just you do you, I do me. And then other people are, like more in your face kind of, engaging with it. Like how do you engage? Is it even, do you even attempt to try and create a bridge between atheists and religious people, or is it just for you at this stage, like, get that thing away from my face?
That's a really, really good question. I think, for myself, I'm very outspoken. I love people. I consider myself a humanist. So regardless of somebody being an atheist or religious or anything, I will talk to them as I would talk to anybody else. However, I think it really depends on how much sleep and coffee I've gotten, depending on how fiery I am and feisty. And also, to be really honest with you and to bring it down to like a very, very selfish answer, I think it really depends on the aftermath of the effects that I could have. If I really go into battle per se, if I start having a conversation about the atrocities of religion and how horrible it is with, a boss, I probably should not,
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm very mindful of, I guess, how will this impact me? But I do try also to present myself in a compassionate manner, regardless of how much I'm gritting my teeth, because I really think that this is an important message, and you get more bees with honey than with vinegar, right? I think that for me, it's super important to actually spread the message. And if I'm going to go into full attack mode, which I do in my brain a lot of times, the message isn't going to be heard. And the message is important enough where I have to treat the message with respect and hold it in a way that the other person is open to listening to it, right? So I think it really depends on the audience, but and how I'm going to suffer after.
No, I agree with you. It's like everything that you say, I'm like agreeing with you. Maybe we should find something to disagree on.
Yeah, no kidding. Do you like cilantro?
I do, actually.
Oh, me too. Okay. We're soulmates.
I don't eat pineapple on pizza.
What? That's weird. Pineapple's delicious on pizza.
I cannot eat Hawaiian pizzas.
Okay. Never mind. I guess we're not soulmates. That's where I draw the line.
But it's so true, that thing of choosing your battles. You have to be able to, before you charge in, with the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse on your tail, trying to flush the religion out of your works cafeteria with someone is praying over their sandwich. Like you have to choose your battles wisely.
Absolutely. And I still catch myself going to do the sign of the cross before eating. Still to this day, I will start going like this. I'm like, and then I kind of like freeze for a moment because I'm like, what do I do? Just like don't know what to do with my hands.
You must just visualize a vampire whenever you make the cross. You visualize yourself catching fire.
Oh my god!
It's crazy how these things follow us, and it's
yes.
And it's so insidious. You won't realize it until it actually happens. We had this, like when you get that, we call it like when you get the chills down your back. Like I was brought up to, to believe that there was some ghost or spirit or something involved in the room when that happens. There's some relative or something, And to this day, when that happens,
you think of it.
The first thing that comes to mind is like, Grandma.
Yeah, I was going to say, Grandma. I'm so sorry. Don't watch me. This is behind closed doors.
Lissette, this has been so delightful. You've really been a delightful guest, and I'm sure that our viewers also enjoyed this. In closing, won't you just remind us where everybody can find you on social media?
Yeah, when you said that, I was like, I don't know. You said that like a few minutes ago. I'm like, I'm really actually nobody So the one channel that has my heart and I support is Nuestra Experiencia Atea, which is our atheist experience in Spanish. It is for our Latin community. All of our channels and shows within that is in Spanish for our Spanish community. That being said, one of the most educated atheists that I know, Mark Peralta, has an amazing channel that has just started, Belief Battles, and it is a wonderful, wonderful program. It's a call-in show on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Central Time. I'm really bad with the time zones, but I really highly recommend that you go check him out. It's incredible. I 100% support his cause and everything that he stands for. I've had the pleasure of being on it, hence how I met you, Dean. But Belief Battles, and for any of my Latin community, Nuestra Experiencia Atea, los esperamos.
Amazing. Yeah, be sure to message me the links to any channels or profiles or Twitters or whatever that you want to promote, and I'll post it in the description of the video. And again, from a very cold and chilly South Africa, we wish you all the best. Keep doing what you're doing. It's it does my heart very good. My old dead cold atheist heart beats once a minute now. That I've seen, this
I'm so
fiery
honored.
Latina spirit of yours. Keep doing what you're doing, and I wish you all the best. Take care, Lissette.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.